This is indieJourno.com. I'm Paul Matadine. Are hate groups on the rise in the United States? I know it's a question on many of your minds. It is on my mind. And with me is Dr. Remy Cross. He's with Webster University in St. Louis. Sir, thank you for joining me. And the first question, of course, is, are we seeing an uptick in hate groups in the United States?
The short answer is yes, but this isn't anything particularly new. Over the course of U.S. history, we've seen these sorts of groups rise and fall, and we do seem to be at a point in time right now where they are, to some extent, ascendant due to a combination of factors that have made it easier for them to become more visible, push their agenda, and also go out there and recruit larger numbers of people into these groups.
The president being one of them. Talk to me about that factor.
So the president, through his words and action and maybe more fairly inaction, has sent sort of a message that these groups have interpreted to mean, if not open support, at least tacit support for their goals, their aims, the way they go about doing these things. They're used to very strong condemnation, and in the absence of that, they read that as a green light to go ahead and do what they want to do. One of the things I think often goes unmentioned about these groups is they embrace a twisted sort of patriotism.
Right.
Let
me mention this off the bat, because it's despite President Trump's intention, we're talking about what his actions mean to these people. Basically, perception is reality.
Yeah, and when they see him not condemning them, what they see that is a green light to go ahead and do what they want to do as a approval of a sorts, because they're used to this more stronger sort of condemnation.
Are we seeing an emboldening, or are we seeing a growth? Are people being, for lack of a better term, recruited because of the support or the perceived support?
I think it'd be fair to say both. Certainly, the primary effect here is an emboldening, but as they become more bold, as they become more visible, it also allows people who may normally not have gone out and joined these groups to consider doing so. And one of the things we know through studying these types of groups is once they get you in, they work very hard to bring you into their mindset, to sort of convert you to their worldview. So if you've got people that are sort of curious about this or dabbling in this sort of ideology, then having these groups more visible means that they're able to reach out and bring in more of these people and possibly convert them to their particular mindset. They specifically, we've known for many, many years that they specifically target younger people who often are looking for a sense of belonging or looking for a place in the world, or who feel that they've sort of gotten a rough deal out of life so far. And one of the things these groups often promise is an explanation for why particularly young white men are treated or may feel that they're treated in a particular way. And they offer a solution, which is to go after the people that are taking their jobs, to go after the people that are seen to be reducing their power and their influence and their ability to do what they want to do in the world.
Dr. Cross, this does not make me feel better. Should we be fearful of more scenes like Charlottesville unfolding across the U.S.?
It's tough to really predict the future here, but I think these groups are not going away anytime soon. They certainly have seen the response from Charlottesville, and in looking at how they're talking about this internally, they see this as sort of a victory. For them, it got them what they wanted: publicity, attention, and an increased profile. You've seen sort of concern for a large number of these other rallies and gatherings that were already on the books that are being planned. Right. And I think in the short term, you're going to see a doubling down.
What can we do?
One of the things that is effective is sort of a strong message that this is not acceptable, that this is not something that communities want present, and that in unequivocal terms, these types of ideologies, this kind of hate is not something that we're going to tolerate in communities, and going out there and really reaching out and trying to recruit people in. In the longer term, I think what needs to be addressed is sort of the underlying concerns that often lead to these sorts of groups, to the lack of outreach often to the people that are recruited and providing them with other opportunities so that they don't fall into the orbit of these sorts of groups, but also looking at the sorts of spaces that they may use to coordinate, to recruit, and to talk amongst themselves and really create this sort of atmosphere, and figuring out ways of making these spaces less prevalent and less accessible so that you undercut their ability to recruit and convert new people into their movements.
And that's going to be speaking up at your city council meeting if one of these events are being planned. I mean, you're talking about really participating in the process to make sure that the speech, or at least the speech filled with hate, isn't spread in the public forum.
Yeah, and I will say I'm sympathetic towards a lot of the people that work in local government here, because they have a fine line to walk here between protecting speech rights, but also respecting the will of their community, and it's not an easy line to walk. But I think the protesters here, also exercising their First Amendment rights, are very important for sending that message that communities do not want these groups there, and reject their message.
You said in the beginning of our interview that this is cyclical. Will we see a downturn after this uptick?
You almost always see a downturn with these groups. The question always is how long is it going to be before the downturn really takes hold and becomes significant? The last sort of major upswelling of this was probably in the mid to late 90s, when you saw groups like the Oklahoma City bombers and incidents like Ruby Ridge and Waco. And obviously in that case, strong intervention by the FBI was necessary to shut down some of these groups and to really put the clamps down and make sure that they weren't able to operate in the way that they wanted to operate. One of the worries here, obviously, is that lacking strong federal guidance on this at this point in time, it may allow these groups to continue going for longer than they otherwise might be able to.
Dr. Remy Cross, a harsh reality, but one that we're dealing with right now.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.